Officer Donnelly thought it'd be an easy win, a mathy teen with no legal training. What he didn't expect was for her to build a case so solid it cracked open his career in front of a full courtroom. The courtroom wasn't quiet, not really. You could hear the hum of an ancient fan in the corner, the faint scribble of a clerk's pen, the shifting of cheap plastic chairs, but everything felt still when Arielle Manning walked in. She wasn't dressed to impress, just a navy blazer, khaki pants and flats, the kind of outfit you'd wear to a school debate or a Sunday church program, but she wore it like armor. Her hair was pulled back into a simple bun, glasses perched low on her nose. She looked calm, controlled, like someone who'd already read the final chapter of a book everyone else was still flipping through. At the defense table she sat down slowly, no lawyer beside her, just her 17 accused of obstructing justice alone. And that's when Officer Rick Donnelly laughed. It wasn't loud, but loud enough for the bailiff to glance his way, a little smirk pulled at the corner of his mouth like he was watching a bad sitcom. He already knew the ending. To Judge Raymond Keyes looked up. "Miss Manning, you're representing yourself today?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said. Her voice was smooth, clear, no trace of nerves. Donnelly leaned back in his seat at the prosecutor's table, crossed his arms. "This'll be quick," he muttered under his breath. Arielle didn't even flinch. To the rest of the courtroom it looked simple, a girl from the east side of Phoenix trying to be clever, another arrest gone routine, just another docket number. But what they didn't know not yet was that Arielle Manning had spent the last 4 weeks preparing like her future depended on it, because it did. She scanned the room, eyes pausing briefly on her mother in the back row. Her mom didn't smile, she was barely breathing. Arielle gave a tiny nod, not for comfort, for confirmation. She had this. The bailiff called the case, the State of Arizona vs. Arielle Manning, case number 22 to 1.35b, 1 count obstruction of justice, 1 count interfering with police procedure. Arielle stood ready. "Your Honor." The judge looked down at his file. "Miss Manning, I've read the charges. You've waived your right to an attorney. I must caution you, this is not traffic court. You will be held to the same standards as a licensed attorney." "I understand, Your Honor." Donnelly shook his head like he couldn't believe this was a girl like her quoting legal codes, arguing her own defense. To him it was laughable, but here's what he didn't know: Arielle hadn't been wasting time after that arrest. She hadn't been out partying or skipping school or posting online about how unfair life was. She'd been reading, studying, watching courtroom footage on public record sites, reaching out to legal aid hotlines under a fake name just to hear how real lawyers dissect a case, and most importantly, she'd been rewatching that footage from her cracked phone over and over, because when she'd hit record that day outside Roosevelt High, she wasn't trying to go viral, she was trying to protect someone. Her classmate D'Angelo had been pushed face first into a fence during an argument about a broken locker. Donnelly showed up angry and shouting, and when Arielle stepped in, not even touching anyone, just asking what the hell he was doing, she got cuffed, shoved into a cruiser and written up for obstructing an officer in the performance of his duties. The footage didn't lie, but back then no one cared. Now it was evidence, but that comes later. Right now Arielle adjusted her glasses, took out a stack of neatly organized documents from her folder and placed them in front of her. Donnelly looked bored. She looked ready, but arrogance has a way of collapsing under the weight of truth, and that truth was about to make the room sit up and listen. It happened on a Tuesday. Hot, dry, the kind of Arizona heat that makes metal fences feel like stovetops. School had just let out. Arielle was waiting near the corner of South 13th Avenue and West Adams Street, halfway listening to music, halfway scrolling through a group project chat. That's when she heard it, raised voices, a crowd starting to gather. She pocketed her phone and walked toward the noise. A student, Angelo Ruiz, a junior with a reputation for being loud but harmless, was arguing with a school security guard, something about a locker getting broken into, someone blaming him, but it wasn't Angelo yelling, it was the adult, the one in uniform. And then Officer Donnelly showed up. He wasn't school security, he was Phoenix PD, assigned to that part of town after a recent uptick in petty crime. Everyone knew him, big square shoulders, sunglasses always on hand, always resting near his belt like he was waiting for an excuse. Arielle had seen him before. She'd seen how he talked to kids, not like they were people, but like they were problems. This time was no different. Donnelly stormed over, didn't ask a single question, just grabbed Angelo by the arm. The kid yanked back on instinct. No punches, no threats, just fear, and that was enough for Donnelly to slam him into the fence. Arielle froze for half a second, then pulled out her phone. "You can't do that," she said. "He didn't do anything." Donnelly glanced at her like she was gum on the bottom of his shoe. "Back up," he barked. "Now I'm recording this," Arielle said, her voice steady but loud enough for the other students to hear. "You didn't even ask what happened. You want to interfere," Donnelly said, now letting go of D'Angelo and stepping toward her. you want to be a part of this. Arielle didn't flinch. You're not allowed to use excessive force without cause. I know my rights. You know your rights, he repeated mockingly. How about you learn the consequences? And just like that she was shoved against the patrol car, arms behind her back, phone yanked from her hand. You can't, she started, but he was already locking the cuffs. Obstruction, he said, loud enough for his body cam. She interfered with police activity. Students gasped. A few pulled out their own phones, but the damage was done by the time Arielle's mother arrived at the precinct. She'd already been fingerprinted, booked, and told she'd have to face a judge. The days that followed weren't loud, they were quiet, heavy. No lawyer would take the case for free. Public defenders were overloaded. Her mom worked double shifts at the hospital and didn't have the money to fight it, so Arielle went to work herself. She remembered what her aunt used to say: if you want someone to hear you first, learn their language. That night she watched 4 hours of courtroom videos on YouTube. The next night, 6, she started writing down words she didn't understand and looking them up. She printed off the police report, read it line by line, highlighted every lie. She reached out to her cousin's girlfriend, a paralegal in Flagstaff. They didn't talk much, but when she heard the story, she sent Arielle a list of resources: legal code PDFs, public case records, video tutorials. It was like throwing a match into gasoline. Arielle didn't just study the law, she memorized it. She learned what judges look for when someone represents themselves. She found cases where young people fought charges and won. She even rehearsed opening statements in the mirror, recording herself on a board tablet to study her posture and tone. School faded into the background. Her teachers sent emails. Some offered support, others didn't respond, but one, Mr. Kirkwood, her history teacher, noticed. You're not giving up, are you? He asked one afternoon when she lingered after class. No, she said, I'm just getting ready. But the thing about getting ready is people rarely notice until the spotlight hits, and then they wonder how you ever stayed invisible in the first place. Arielle didn't train like someone hoping to win. She trained like someone who had no choice but to. Every morning started the same: wake up before sunrise, clear off the kitchen table and open her binder. It was heavy now, 3 inches thick, crammed with printed statutes, handwritten notes, sticky tabs in neon colors, and pages of transcripts from other court cases she'd found online. She marked everything yellow for key terms, blue for contradictions, red for Donnelly's inconsistencies. She had watched her own arrest video more than 30 times. She learned to break it down frame by frame, pointing out the exact second Donnelly grabbed Angela, the moment she spoke up, the time her hands were visible. What she didn't do was cry. Her mom Patrice had wanted her to take a plea. We can't afford to gamble, baby, she whispered one night over reheated casserole. They got the badge, they got the judge. You don't win in rooms like that. Arielle didn't answer right away. She just chewed slowly, then pushed the plate away. I'm not trying to win, ma'am, I'm trying to show them I don't scare easy. That quiet shook Patrice more than shouting would have. Later that night, Arielle sat alone in her room, a laptop borrowed from Mr. Kirkwood balancing on a pillow. The glow lit up her face while the cursor blinked on a Word doc titled Opening Statement Draft 4. Each time she read it aloud, she caught something new: a word too soft, a line too emotional, a sentence that didn't feel like her. She didn't want to come across angry. Angry meant loud. Angry made people stop listening. No, she had to sound measured, not because she wasn't mad, but because it scared them more when a girl like her knew how to keep her cool. One afternoon she called the legal aid hotline again. This time she asked to speak to someone familiar with excessive force cases. The woman on the line sounded tired but kind. Are you filing a complaint or facing charges? Both. Arielle said. Technically okay. Do you have a lawyer? I'm my lawyer. There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. Well, damn, all right, what's your name? Arielle hesitated, then gave it for the first time. Over the next half hour they reviewed her report. The woman Jeanette told her which parts of the statute the DA would likely lean on. She warned her how judges tend to react to teen defendants without counsel. Don't try to sound smart, Jeanette said at one point. Try to sound certain. That line stuck. She wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it to the top of her binder. Don't try to sound smart, try to sound certain. In her spare moments she practiced in front of mirrors, in front of her mom, even once in front of 2 kids on her block who usually just played video games on her porch. What if the judge interrupts you? One of them asked. Then I wait, and when he's done I make sure he hears me anyway. Mr. Kirkwood offered to be a character witness. Her cousin's girlfriend sent her a PDF on how to structure cross-examinations. Even the school janitor, Mr. LaRue, who barely spoke a full sentence most days, handed her legal dictionary he kept from his night classes back in 2002. People started to root for her, not because because she asked them to, but because she never asked for pity. They saw how serious she was, but Donnelly didn't. He still believed this would be a short trial. A girl with no training, no degree. He figured he'd toss out a few buzzwords and walk out clean. He had no idea that the teenager sitting across from him had prepared more thoroughly than most lawyers he'd faced in real courtrooms. But belief has a way of breaking when it's forced to confront truth with a microphone, and Arielle was ready to speak. The courtroom looked different the second time. This wasn't an arraignment, this was the trial. Same judge, same ceiling fan, but now the seats in the back were fuller. A few teachers from Roosevelt High had come to. Angelo sat near the front, his mother beside him, and somewhere in the back corner with her notepad out sat a reporter from the Arizona Daily Sun. Someone had tipped her off about the girl defending herself against a police officer. Arielle stood as the judge entered. "Be seated," Judge Keyes said, straightening his glasses. The bailiff looked between Arielle and Donnelly. State of Arizona vs. Arielle Manning trial in session. The prosecutor gave a dull opening. She framed Arielle as disruptive, disrespectful, someone who escalated an already tense situation. Donnelly sat behind her, arms folded, occasionally smirking like this was just another routine shift. Then it was Arielle's turn. She walked to the center, notes in hand, but she didn't read them. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court," she began, looking directly at them. "I'm not a lawyer, I won't pretend I am, but I do know what I saw, and more importantly I know what I lived. I'll let the facts speak for me." She returned to her table, simple, clean, but not passive. The judge nodded, slightly impressed. Then came the witnesses. The prosecutor called Donnelly first. He took the stand with practiced ease. "Officer Donnelly," she began, "can you describe what happened on the afternoon of September 12th? Donnelly leaned in. "Yes, I arrived at Roosevelt High after receiving a report of an aggressive student. When I got there, the situation had escalated. I restrained the student for safety, and this young woman began shouting, interfering with my ability to manage the incident." Arielle listened quietly, jotting notes. When the prosecutor finished, the judge turned to her. "Your witness." Arielle stood, heart steady. "Officer Donnelly," she said, "how long have you been with the Phoenix Police Department?" 17 years. "And in those 17 years, how many times have you arrested a student for obstruction without a physical altercation?" Donnelly raised a brow. "Several. It depends on the threat level." "Was I a threat to you, sir? You were yelling. I couldn't focus on the scene. I was standing 12 feet away. Is that correct?" He paused. "Approximately." "You didn't ask me to leave the area, you told me to back up. That standard protocol. Is grabbing a student by the back of the neck also standard protocol?" The prosecutor objected. "Assumes facts, not an evidence." Sustained, the judge said. Arielle took a breath, pivoted. "No further questions right now, Your Honor." She walked back, calm. The prosecutor called two more witnesses, one school security officer who vaguely remembered seeing Arielle recording, and a student who said they weren't really paying attention. Then it was Arielle's turn to call hers. She called Mr. Kirkwood first. He described her as sharp, driven, someone who never caused trouble. She was the one kids went to when they didn't understand the assignment. He said, "You don't expect a kid like that to act impulsively." Then came to Angelo. He sat down, nervous but honest. "She was helping me." He said, "She didn't even touch anyone. She just asked what was going on." "Did she threaten Officer Donnelly?" "No." "Did she interfere physically?" "No, she had her phone out." "That's it." Arielle nodded, looked at the judge. "I'd like to enter a video file into evidence," she said. "It's from my phone, taken at the time of the incident." The judge allowed it. The video played. The audio was a little crackly but clear enough. You could hear Donnelly shout, "See him!" Push to Angelo. Hear Arielle's voice, not screaming, not threatening, just asking, "What are you doing?" When Donnelly grabbed her, the angle shifted, but you could hear everything. Gasps echoed softly in the courtroom. Arielle didn't look at the screen. She watched Donnelly for the first time. His confidence slipped, but the thing about the truth is, once it's out in the open, it doesn't go back. Quietly, the silence after the video played wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. Even the judge leaned back in his seat, fingers steepled, eyes locked on Donnelly. He cleared his throat. "Officer, would you like to respond to what we just saw?" Donnelly shifted in his chair. "The video doesn't show the whole interaction, Your Honor. You can't see the angle I was at. She was provoking a volatile situation." Arielle stood. "Objection. That's a subjective opinion, not a factual correction." The judge glanced at her, sustained. "Officer, stick to the facts." Donnelly tried again. "I perceived her behavior as threatening." Arielle didn't look angry. She looked prepared. "Officer Donnelly," she said, stepping back into cross-examination. In your original police report you said, and I quote, the subject approached aggressively yelling and failed to comply with verbal warnings. Is that correct? Yes, but in the video my voice is calm. I'm standing in place. I never move closer to you. Videos can be deceiving. I agree. That's why I submitted a timestamp analysis. She held up a printed screenshot. This frame shows my location. This frame 5 seconds later shows me in the same spot. No movement, no approach, just standing. Would you like to challenge the timestamps? The courtroom was still. I'm not a video expert. Donnelly said, that's fine. I submitted this video for expert review with a digital analyst from Northern Arizona University. I can call her as a rebuttal witness. The prosecutor looked up quickly. Your Honor, I'm well within my rights. Arielle said, I disclosed the witness 2 days ago. Judge Keyes raised his hand. She did. It's in the file. Arielle sat back down slowly, calm, like someone who had just moved a piece on the board and already knew the next 5 moves. The analyst confirmed the footage's integrity. No editing, no tampering, no movement from Arielle in the time she allegedly approached aggressively. Donnelly's statement was now under fire. His credibility started to crumble. Then Arielle made one more move. Your Honor, she said, I request the court to consider previous complaints filed against Officer Donnelly, specifically the 3 filed within the last 5 years, one from a parent at Dunbar Elementary, one from a gas station clerk, and one from a man he detained during a traffic stop last November. The judge raised an eyebrow. You're referring to public misconduct records? Yes, sir. All available through a Freedom of Information request. All filed but never prosecuted. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, those are unproven accusations, which is why I'm not arguing guilt. Arielle said, turning to face the court. I'm asking the court to consider a pattern of overreaction, a pattern of targeting people who ask questions. I'm not his first stop, just the first one who brought a binder. A ripple of quiet reactions passed through the courtroom, not loud but enough to feel. Donnelly looked like a man realizing the room no longer belonged to him. The judge called a recess when court resumed. His demeanor had changed. He was more serious now, measured. I've reviewed the footage and considered the testimony provided, he began, and I have concerns. Miss Manning, your presentation of evidence, your line of questioning, and the context you've brought forward raise valid doubt. The prosecutor sat stiffly, lips pressed. As such, Judge Keyes continued, the charge of obstruction is dismissed. Arielle didn't move. She didn't smile, just stared forward as if her body hadn't caught up to the words yet. I will also be submitting a formal recommendation for review of Officer Donnelly's conduct, including past complaints and his actions in this case. That's when she exhaled. No cheers, no applause, just a quiet, steady breath, the kind you take when you finally put something heavy down. But vindication is never the end, it's just the part where people start asking how you carried the weight for so long. When Arielle stepped out of the courtroom, the sunlight hit different, not in a poetic way, just brighter than she remembered, sharper. Her mom was waiting just outside the steps, arms crossed tight over her chest like she was trying to contain a hurricane. Arielle didn't say anything, neither did her mom. They just hugged, not the kind of hug that lasts forever, the kind that says, we made it, now let's breathe. D'Angelo walked up with his mom. You killed it in there, he said, his voice half whisper. I didn't even know you could do all that. I didn't either, Arielle replied. Not till I had to. The reporter from the Daily Sun hovered nearby, notebook out, but Arielle shook her head gently. Not today, not yet. Over the next week the story spread, not viral, not headline breaking, but enough. The article called her the teen who defended herself and made the court listen. There were think pieces. School board members started asking questions about police presence on campuses. People called the House to offer college resources, mock trial scholarships, even mentorships from black attorneys across the state. But Arielle didn't care about attention. She cared about the record. That video, the one they said didn't matter, was now part of an official complaint. Donnelly had been placed on administrative leave. Internal Affairs had opened a review. Some still defended him. Of course that never really changes. He was just doing his job. She should have kept quiet. Why record everything? But for every voice like that there were 2 more saying she stood her ground. She knew the rules better than they did. She changed something at Roosevelt High. Students started asking questions in class differently, sharper. Teachers noticed. Some leaned in to help, others stayed quiet, but the energy had shifted. One afternoon Mr. Kirkwood called Arielle in after school. I pulled a few strings, he said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. There's a summer program at Arizona State Law, exposure mentorship, mock court sessions. They take 20 students. I already emailed your name. Arielle opened the folder, scanned the application. She didn't cry, didn't laugh, just nodded once. What made you decide to do it? He asked. I mean, really? She thought about that for a second. It wasn't just about me, it was about making sure the next kid like me doesn't have to choose between being quiet or being in cuffs. He leaned back in his chair smiling softly. I think you've got more than a binder now. She laughed for the first time in weeks. Later that night, Arielle sat at the kitchen table again, this time not with notes but with a blank sheet of paper. She wrote down one sentence across the top. They thought I came to defend myself, but I came to expose the truth. She didn't know what her future held, but now for the first time she got to choose what came next on her terms. The message wasn't just about a girl who beat a bad charge, it was about what happens when you prepare in silence, speak with clarity, and refuse to be pushed into a corner. Arielle Manning didn't ask for a fight, but when it came she didn't flinch. She studied, she stayed standing. She shows them that brilliance doesn't always wear a suit or have a title. Sometimes it's just a teenager with a binder full of printouts, a camera phone, and the courage to say that's not okay, because justice doesn't always come from the top down. Sometimes it starts with someone no one saw coming. If this story moved you, share it. Someone out there needs to hear that their voice matters. And if you haven't yet subscribed, we've got more stories coming, stories that don't just speak, they remind us what's worth standing up for.